On everyone. The Lakers were very active in this 2022 NBA draft. They went and acquired the 35th pick from the Orlando Magic and drafted Max Christie. I did a full video on Max Christie. I'll link that video down in the description below. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the undrafted free agents that we picked up as well, at least so far. There hasn't been any other that I have seen announced, at least at the time of this video. I even gave it about 40 minutes or so. But diving into it, outside of Max Christie, it is really exciting. I mean, he's a young prospect, 3-and-D type wing, comes from Michigan State, so he has the pedigree to fit in with the Lakers. He's a guy that could contribute to some extent. His shot, he has a great looking shot, but his shot isn't spot on. You know, it's not really automatic yet, but hopefully the Lakers can build that. He's young, he's 19 years old. He has a lot of promise. But beyond that, with the undrafted free agents, which the Lakers have been absolutely just remarkable in that department. I mean, Austin Reeves, Alex Caruso, as of late, have really been contributors right away, especially Austin Reeves last year. But they ended up signing with a two-way contract, Scottie Pippen Jr. And now, many people, Scottie Pippen Jr., that's exciting, all of those things. You know, yes, it's a name, Scottie Pippen, but when you look at his stats, is he comparable to his father? He's smaller. He's only 6'3", 185 pounds, compared to his dad, who was, 6'9", which is a huge factor. Defensively, he is pretty solid for a smaller guy. Many people kind of compare it to Gary Payton Jr., and a lot of the conversation right now is like, well, they missed on Gary Payton Jr., they actually had him, they let him go, and now look, so maybe he can kind of replicate that coming from a defensive style family. But beyond defense, I mean, he was a 20.4-point-a-game scorer. He averaged, just under 4 rebounds, just under 5 assists, and shot 41.6% from the field. Now, he isn't a spot-on shooter again. He's not like lights out, but he is a guy that can improve and develop. And, coming from the family in which he does with Scottie Pippen Jr., it makes sense that, the Lakers would take a flyer on him. Having a guy who can be in his ear, chirp, who was, a legend in this league, who won championships, all of that stuff can help sort of develop even when he's not on the court. Having that father figure that was in the league, was in a position, was, the second guy to a Michael Jordan really helps. And then Scottie Pippen Jr., being on a two-way contract. He was one of our two-way contracts they signed him on. Now he can kind of go to the D League and then come here, or G League, I should say, and and kind of go back and forth, that kind of thing. So it'll be curious to see how he does. I'm curious to see how he performs in Summer League. But to kind of stick with the juniors in this sense, the Lakers also brought on Sharif O'Neal, who is Shaquille O'Neal's son. A lot of people were really hyped about this pickup. Now, he is a guy that, if you look at his stats and stuff, he's not going to stand out to you. I mean, he averaged like 3 points and like 3 rebounds a game. He did shoot 50%, but he had a lot of issues. He had to have heart surgery, all kinds of stuff. He's a bit older, in age. He's 22, I believe, top of my head, but he's still a 6'10", 220-pound guy. Who is the son of Shaquille O'Neal. He is a lot of a different style of player than Shaquille O'Neal was. I mean, he was hyped. Like, people talked about him potentially being number 1 overall in high school when he got into the league. And then there was the whole transfer, and it's just been a mess for him from the moment he came to college. And he's had injuries and all kinds of stuff, so that's why nobody really took a flyer on him. Nobody really thought he was going to get drafted. He even relayed that him and his dad, Shaq, really butted heads about him entering the draft, that Shaq thought he should go back to school, get his degree, and then also, show what he's capable of now. But he made the decision, he's an adult, made the decision to go and take a chance on himself, and the Lakers are extending it. Now, I know a lot of people are excited about this, but this just kind of feels like a, we're doing this for your dad type thing. That doesn't mean that Sharif O'Neal won't be a great player. That doesn't mean that, he won't be a star. It doesn't mean that he can't, be a guy that could really help the Lakers, especially as like a third center on the bench. But right now, it's just a summer league deal. Just come, show us what you can do. So if he does have a big impact, I could see the Lakers maybe bringing him on, or, sending him down to the affiliate team, something along those lines to kind of just build him up and get him ready. But, if I'm being honest, I don't think the Lakers would have taken him if it wasn't for his dad. I believe in him. I believe that he will prove and do the best to his ability. But there's a reason that nobody drafted him, and that, people weren't rushing to the door to go sign him. And I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with his skill set. There's just a lot of concerns with his health. How much can he play? Like, even if he is this guy that could just be an absolute dominant force, like, is he going to be a guy that can play 35 minutes night in and night out? I don't know if he's going to be a guy that could be your starting center, even if he is great, just because of all of his health issues, health concerns. Like I said, he's a guy that had open heart surgery. So there's a lot of concerns there with him as a player, but I'm rooting for him. I really am. I'm rooting for him, and I really hope that he shows, like, look, I am this guy. I am not, my father. I am somebody different, because he is. He's a guy that can knock down the three. He can, dribble the ball. He can put it on the floor. I mean, people. I don't know if people remember, but he was, like, extremely hyped. And it wasn't just because of his dad. It was because of his skill set. He was a 6'10" guy that could handle the ball, that could shoot the three. Like, he was not his dad at all, skill set wise. He wasn't a back to the basket, knock you down and then just bang all over you. I mean, he could, depending on who he's going against. He's a guy that has size, but he's more of a finesse player than like Shaq, just this dominant monster that could, basically just back you down and there was nothing you could do. But for the last player that the Lakers have picked up so far, we have from Syracuse coming in Cole Swider. So Swider is a guy who many people were really excited to see get picked up. He comes from Syracuse, which is a pristine organization. He's a guy that's 6'9", 220 pounds, could put the ball on the floor a little bit, but he shot like 41%, 42% on catch and shoot threes. He's like a 38, 39% career three-point shooter as a whole, but he's a versatile wing. He's got a good wingspan. He averaged just under 14 points, just under 7 rebounds, gave you about 1.5 assists, and shot 44% from the field total. But he's a guy that he's the second two-way guy. So we got another two-way guy, him, and then Scottie Pippen Jr. He's a guy with a lot of promise. He may end up being like a little bit of a project that they have to build up on, things like that. But that's why he's a two-way player. But he is a guy that, if his shot's falling, he's 6'8", he's a wing, he's long. I mean, he could make a name for himself. He could come in and establish himself on this team. I don't know if he's going to be able to earn a roster spot, but, many people felt like that about Austin Reeves. Many people thought like, Austin Reeves, yeah, that's a great pickup, but, he's a guy that could be a stud, but, he's going to go to development and then he'll make his way in. And he just was a monster in Summer League. And then the Lakers brought him in and he was a monster for the Lakers. And I think that this is a guy that could do that same thing. That, you think is going to be a development player, but he comes in, he's big, he's long, 6'3". It doesn't hurt to have him as like, your 14th guy on the bench. Let him get some development, let him get some burn. Especially, look, LeBron, Anthony Davis, they're going to miss 20-plus games a year, right? So that there's going to be at least 20 games where LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't going to play. This is a guy that could come in, maybe get some minutes. I don't think he starts or anything like that. But, again, nobody thought Austin Reeves would, and many people want him to start next season, So he's a guy that could come in, get some minutes, get some burn. I could see him, having a game that really just lights it up. And you're just like, wow, like this guy is a monster. He, in my opinion, has outside of Max, who we actually drafted, he's a big factor for me. Sharif, I think, is pure project. He's a high reward, low risk guy. If he becomes a stud, great, you got him. He ain't going nowhere because he wants to play with the Lakers. His dad's going to be chirping in his ear, all that stuff. So he's a guy that, you can watch develop. You don't have to bring him in right away. You could give him a couple years to develop, and then, he's 24, 25. Maybe he is that guy that we hope he is. He comes in, boom. But who knows? Maybe he will make huge strides in Summer League, and they bring him on, and he earns a roster spot as like our third big off the bench. Behind, Anthony Davis, whatever center we get signing, maybe he's the fourth, because he could play the power forward and small forward. So if he's like your fourth or fifth guy off the bench, as far as like power forwards and centers go, I don't think it's a big deal. But he is a big question mark. And then Scottie Pippen Jr., I think he's going to be really hit or miss because he is undersized, but he can play big for his size, much like a Gary Payton Jr. He is, in many ways, a Gary Payton Jr., like type of shot, things like that. I think he's more of a natural scorer than Gary Payton Jr. is, but he's not a guy that I think is going to come in the NBA and immediately give you, 15 to 20 a night. But I think he's a guy that I wouldn't be shocked if he earned a roster spot. Like if Scottie Pippen Jr. came in, he's like our third guy off the bench. I could see it. I wouldn't be shocked at all. But realistically, I think he's going to be, development guy. He's going to be a guy that they develop. Very likely O'Neal's going to be a guy that they develop. And then Max and Cole, I think they're the two guys that are very likely going to be the guys that I could see likely getting a roster spot. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What did you think of the Lakers draft? Did you love it? Did you hate it? All of those things. We'll do a full draft breakdown and stuff like that tomorrow, kind of let things settle in, see where other guys go tonight, and then we'll talk about it more in depth tomorrow, kind of get your opinions on who you think won the draft, who do you think lost the draft, all that stuff. So we'll definitely have like a full analysis, full breakdown. But so far, what did you think of the Lakers? What did you think of their undrafted free agents as well as their actual draft pick? And I imagine they're probably going to pick up one or two other guys that we haven't heard yet. At least I hope so. But let me know. Let me know who you'd like to see the Lakers take a flyer on that went undrafted. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. I'm still kind of shocked nobody's taken, at least from what I've seen, the center from Purdue, Williams. I'm actually pretty surprised on that. You'd think somebody would take a flyer on him, but we'll see. Like I said, lot to unfold, lot to develop. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.